Breaking right now on Morning News Now, unspeakable tragedy. At least 2 children are dead, several others critically hurt after someone opened fire during morning mass at a Catholic school in Minneapolis.
I was like 2 seats away from the stained glass windows. So they were like, the shots were like right next to me. My friend Victor like saved me though, because he laid on top of me, but he got hit.
We are on the scene as the investigation gets underway, plus what we're learning about the now deceased shooter. Also this morning, federal fallout. CDC Director Susan Minares now out of a job. She refused to resign over what she calls unscientific, reckless directives by the Trump administration. On top of that, dozens of FEMA employees put on leave for criticizing the Trump administration's disaster preparedness plans. All this as the White House works to extend federal control over Washington. We'll bring you the latest. Plus, the FDA giving limited approval for the next round of COVID vaccines. What doctors want you to know and what this means for insurance coverage for your next COVID shot. And new this morning, they're the real-life humans shaping the future of artificial intelligence. We're going to go through Time's 100 most influential people in AI and how this year's honorees are impacting our daily lives. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers.
We begin this hour with the tragic shooting in Minnesota. 2 children are dead after a shooter opened fire during morning mass at a Catholic school in South Minneapolis Wednesday. Those victims, described by their principal as 2 angels, were killed while sitting in church pews. They were just 8 and 10 years old. Officials say at least 17 other people were injured, 14 of them children, ranging in age from 6 to 15.
The shooting happened at the Annunciation Catholic School, which just had its first day back on Monday. Police say the shooter, 23-year-old Robin Westman, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Trump called on the nation to join him in, quote, prayer for everyone involved in a post to Truth Social yesterday. But Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is dismissing remarks like these as his community grapples with this tragedy.
These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying.
NBC News law enforcement analyst Evie Pamporis is standing by with a deeper look into the investigation of this tragedy, along with a father whose 11-year-old daughter survived the shooting. First, though, we get to NBC News correspondent Jay Gray, who is on the ground in Minneapolis with the latest. Jay, good morning. Thank you for joining us. I mean, like we just mentioned, just the first week of school for these kids. Tell us about how this tragedy unfolded yesterday.
Yeah, Savannah, we're just ahead of 24 hours out from when this happened. It was the traditional back-to-school mass, the K through 8th grade elementary Catholic school here inside the church that is just behind us when shots shattered the stained glass windows. Dozens of rounds fired from the outside in after the suspect had barricaded the doors so no one could get out. As you talk about 2 students sitting in the church pews, murdered, 8 and 10 years old, 14 other students injured, as well as 3 parishioners in their 80s. This morning, 5 of those injured still in the hospital recovering after surgery. All of those who were wounded expected to make full recoveries as the investigation really ramps up. The church and school still obviously locked down this investigation. We are told that includes federal agents at this point, is going to be long, very detailed. They are trying to understand how and why all of this happened.
Jay, as you mentioned, there are 17 people injured, mostly children, some of them critically. The older people who were injured, not teachers, but parishioners who were in their 80s. What more are we learning about some of the injuries and some of the response to treating those in such a quick fashion yesterday?
It was amazing to see how quickly all of this unfolded and how quickly they were transported to hospitals. And a part of the help here to help those who were injured was from this neighborhood. This church and school, really the anchor of an established neighborhood here where many of the residents go to church here. Many of them went to the school, and they rushed to the scene just after 8:30 in the morning here to help in any way they could, hold on to some of these children as the ambulances arrived, and they arrived very quickly here. It was also training, as we heard from some of the students, that helped them to survive here as they dove under the pews, covered their heads. They said they had trained for this in the classroom, but never in the church. Still, that instinct, that training apparently kicked in. As for the condition of those 6 still in the hospital, they are in critical condition, but again, expected to fully recover physically, Joe, from what happened here.
Jay, excuse me, we also just played their Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, this emotional speech from him yesterday. We've been hearing from community members, of course, how difficult this is. Tell us more about how this community is doing this morning.
They're very stunned and still in shock, as you can imagine, and how many of us are right now with what's happened here. I've seen early this morning, we're starting to see the sun come up now, but early this morning, long before sunrise, there were people from this community out and just had to be here by the church, staring. You could tell that they're still very frustrated and emotional about what's happened here, and really can't wrap their head around what's happened to their community at this point. They are vowing, as is the principal of the Catholic school here, Annunciation, to come back, to not let this ruin what they say is an important part of their lives, an important part of this community, this school and church, and leaning very heavily right now, Savannah, on their faith and something they say will help them to get through what's an unthinkable tragedy.
Absolutely. Jay Gray on the ground for us in Minneapolis. Thank you so much.
Let's bring in Vincent Francois. His 11-year-old daughter, Chloe, is a 6th grader at the Annunciation School. She survived the shooting. Vincent, good morning. We're grateful your daughter is safe physically. I can't imagine how you and your family are feeling this morning. Tell us a little bit about how your daughter is doing in the wake of this.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. She's sleeping right now, which is good. She went to sleep. We were worried about that, but tonight she had a good night right now. We yesterday gathered with a lot of family, so that helped out. But when we got home, we could see the fear again. I can barely go outside the house without her worrying. We're about 3 blocks from the school, and so she's always worried now about outside. So,
Vincent, you mentioned you live so close to the school. Can you just tell us what those first moments were like when you heard, of course, what's every parent's worst nightmare, that there was a shooting at your daughter's school and you're just blocks away? What happened?
It's just completely unreal. So we walk our daughter to school every morning. And this time I was with my wife. We went to get a coffee. On our way back, the kids were going into the church, and I got a call, so I had to go to do something. And then about 20 minutes later, I get a text from my wife saying there is a shooting. And so I drove back, and I just tried to stay calm. And as I drove and parked to my house and start to walk toward the school, I got to feel that things were pretty bad. Fortunately, our daughter was okay. My wife texted me just before I got back to the school, and we got talked to officer, and they channeled us to a family gathering into the gymnasium, and there were all the family, all our friends with all the kids. We kind of got a bit of a news. At that time, we didn't know our poor 2 little kid who didn't make it. And then they transferred us to the auditorium just to do a count. And then we went back home, and that's where we found out about the more death. And it's just tragic, as the reporters say. It's a great little community. It's most a village in a city. The city of Minneapolis is a great city. The Annunciation people are great. I'm not, it is a Catholic-based school, but I'm a Catholic, but I don't practice that much, and it's very open mind. something that we are so fortunate to have, and a sick person break our dream.
I know you mentioned your daughter doesn't want to go outside right now. I know you're also from France. What are some of the other things that she has said to you over the last 24 hours, just about her experience and her thoughts moving forward?
So once we got out of the school, and to back it up, we were in France for vacation to see my family, and we kind of have joking mentioned one day we're going to move there, and she was crying in France. But once we got out of school, she said, I want to move back to France. I don't want to go back to school. All the kids don't want to go to the church. And then, she just said that she thought she was going to die on that day. And so it's rough. It's rough. And she's having a guilt trip to have not done enough. And so we have a new journey to go on, and we're going to figure it out. There is a great community, so we're going to have to stay positive. And right now, the approach is 1 hour at a time, one day at a time, and we will figure it out. But we are all, as parents, we are grateful. Our kids are here, and we all worry about their mindset right now.
You mentioned that great community. Tell us what it's like having each other for support. What will this be like to heal together?
I mean, so yesterday, about 3 hours, we back, there was already text coming up, and family gathered at people's house. So it really felt good. It felt like we're all in it together. We're just not alone, It's like the Liverpool football club team. We never are going to walk alone, And so having that support is fantastic, knowing we can call each other. It's, and I'm sure a lot of people in America went through what we're going through. Unfortunately, a year ago, I told my wife, every time we drop our kids at school, we just never know if they're going to be back. And it just did happen to us. And everybody needs to know that every morning you drop your kids at school, you're not sure if they're going to be back because something is wrong with the culture, and nobody doing anything. Everybody going to go pray and thinking of us, but it's not going to fix the problem here. And our mayor has been fantastic, and I totally agree with him. And I don't know. I really don't know what to do, And so we will see. Will we be here in America in 1 year? I don't know. Maybe we're back in France. I don't know. Right now it's all about our daughter and whatever she wants. She just really mentioned last night she doesn't want to go back to the school. She doesn't want to go back to the church. So right now emotions are really high. And hopefully, we're waiting for her to wake up this morning and see how is she. And my wife is very strong. But like I said, the community, yesterday I was walking my dog and people just stopped the car, hug me. It's like such a great feeling to knowing we're not alone.
The world's watching right now, Vincent. What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that, like I said, first, every time you bring your kids, you don't know if you're going to get back. What can we do? I mean, and tell you the world, like in France, my friend, even in Europe, they're scratching their head and they're like, well, what's going on with America? What's the matter with you people? And what's going on with this gun culture? I have no idea, but you can't even explain them, and I love America. I love France, but I'm just going to be one another parents, say, we got to figure out this gun culture. It's not about being against gun. It's about the access to it. We all know that. Everybody know that. The Democrat don't do anything to it. The Republican don't even less. It's like they all worry about getting reelected and just what counts. And so, I don't know. I just, people just know that America is not well seen for the rest of the world. They think we are crazy.
Vincent, we appreciate your time this morning. Please give our best to your daughter, Chloe, and your family, and know that we're thinking about your community. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us this morning.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that I was able to talk. Thank you.
Let's dig a little deeper into this unfolding investigation. Police say they are poring over disturbing videos posted just before the attack as new details about the shooter and her connection to the church begin to emerge. NBC's Maggie Vespa has more.
We're learning more about the killer who went on that twisted rampage, gunning down children as they prayed in their church pews. Police identifying the shooter as 23-year-old Robin Westman with no criminal history.
At this stage, we believe that the shooter had acted alone. There is no indication of other suspects directly involved in carrying out this attack.
Police say they're executing search warrants at 4 locations tied to the shooter.
As to the weapons used to perpetrate this horrific attack, there was a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. All 3 had been lawfully purchased by the shooter.
The FBI saying it's investigating the mass shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. According to court documents obtained by NBC News, the shooter was granted a legal name change to Robin in 2020. The documents saying Westman identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. Her mother appeared to sign those documents. Police say before carrying out the massacre, Robin Westman posted a series of disturbing videos.
We're also aware of a manifesto that the shooter had timed to be released on YouTube. This manifesto appeared to show him at the scene and included some disturbing writings.
One video showing a handwritten floor plan of a church and several weapons. On one of them, a message threatening to kill President Trump, plus many anti-Semitic slogans and references to the Catholic Church. Police say they have not identified a motive, but are studying those videos.
It's been taken down, and our investigators are going through that to try and develop a motive from that.
So as you just heard there, no motive, but NBC News has uncovered a possible connection between the shooter and this church. In short, it appears the shooter's mother used to work here. The Church of Annunciation posting on Facebook back in 2021, congratulating Mary Grace Westman on her retirement after 5 years here. NBC News has reached out to her as well as other family members of the shooter. So far, no response. Back to you.
All right, Maggie, thank you. Well, let's get more on this with Evie Pampora. She's an NBC News law enforcement analyst and a former Secret Service special agent. Good morning. Thank you, as always, for joining us, helping us try to make sense of the senseless. As we mentioned, though, the FBI is investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. What do those details mean for how this is investigated? What does that mean for the FBI and law enforcement moving forward through this?
So the U.S. Secret Service used to work with the DOE on threat assessments. Actually, they would go to the Secret Service and say, could you help us identify shooters in advance? How do we mitigate these things? So a couple of things. The one main thing is the connection of the shooter to the school. I think we're going to get more information. I don't think it's going to end with just the mom being connected. So my interest would be, did he or she go to that school? You know, what interactions they have? With regard to the weapon, and there's just a little bit of a checklist going on. During the press conference, the chief said that the weapons were purchased recently. So when you hear that, okay, what happened recently that made this individual decide to purchase this weapon, specifically probably to commit this act? The other thing that stands a little bit is there were 3 different weapons, rifle, shotgun, and handgun, and all 3 were utilized. And so there's a little bit of that scenario. I don't know if there's, again, I'm speculating, any media influence or anything like that, video gaming, because they always transition in weapons. So those are some things they're going to look at. Mental health history, you have to look at that. There might be some mental history, some recordings, some data documents because of the change from Robert to Robin, so there might be a trail. Behavior, he communicated. This is another common thing we see with individuals commit mass shootings like these. They will communicate. And so the individual also did that. So these are like the things that you would look out for. The other thing that struck me very interesting, it was an outside attack. When you look at school shootings, usually the shooter goes in and surprises. So when you look at the data, the collective data for shootings, they're typically inside, not outside. The other thing that's really interesting that fits a pattern, morning. Most of these school shootings happen in the morning. This also happened in the morning. So again, I'm just kind of ticking off the things that I would be looking at. Again, going back to the shooter, search history. Where they're finding weapons in other locations. They said 3 residences, so that makes me inquire which residences, right? Is it mother, father, the individual, did that person have their own place? Was it a extended relative? Did anyone not see these? There's a massive amount of weapons and ammo that we've seen in some of these videos that have been taken down. How did no one notice this, right? How is this behavior hidden? What were the signs? You don't do this overnight. This never happens overnight. There is a progression to something like this. And so it's very concerning. Why are these indicators being missed?
We only have a few seconds here, but as you mentioned, there are these 3 weapons. They were legally purchased. Minnesota has some pretty strong gun laws, which sort of begs the question, when you look at the mental health history that we at least see unfolding online, what as a society can we do to try and prevent things like this from happening?
With weapons, it's difficult. One, he has no criminal history, so there's nothing there. 2, there has to be, someone has to say this person is of imminent harm to themselves or another person in order for a weapon to be taken from you. And so when nothing has happened, you don't know that this person's going to do that. So that's where it becomes tricky. Now, if there's documents that reveal anything, that will lead to maybe further investigation or insight. But as of right now, I don't know anything.
All right, Evie Pamporis, we always appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much.
There's a big shakeup at the top of the federal government's leading public health agency. The CDC director was fired after just weeks on the job after clashing with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, Director Susan Menares was fired by the Trump administration after refusing to step down from the position amid political pressure. Menares' lawyers say she was let go after refusing to, quote, rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts. At least 4 other top officials have announced their resignations.
NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now from Washington with the latest. Monica, good morning. So the White House was quick to let Menares go after she refused to resign from her position. This is not a Biden holdover. She's only been on the job about a month. So what led to her firing? What are we hearing from the Trump administration?
And it's not over yet, guys. There's still a back and forth over whether she is technically still the director or whether she has to be fired directly by President Trump. That is what her lawyers are saying overnight. They are claiming that she is still in this position because she was a Senate-confirmed appointee, that it has to be the president himself who either by letter or by phone call or a meeting actually does terminate her. It's interesting because the White House, for their part, put out a statement overnight saying that they believe this matter had been resolved, that they had let her know, though it was a White House official in the personnel office and not the president himself, that she had been terminated from this position. So this is just another example of a bit of a clash that's being set up here, and one that, again, through her attorneys, indicates there could be further back and forth and maybe even potentially something legal here. But it really speaks to the issue that you pointed to in the introduction, which is that there is a disagreement on policy matters here and on some of the decisions. But it is really noteworthy that she had just been in this position for about a month, and the fact that she went through that entire Senate confirmation process, and now they would have to potentially do that again for whoever might replace her here, guys.
Monica, another agency is also experiencing a shakeup this morning. Nearly 24 FEMA employees have been put on administrative leave. This is coming after they signed an open letter that was criticizing the administration's disaster preparedness and response capabilities. I mean, just the amount of severe weather that we have seen over the summer. We are in the middle of hurricane season. Really, it's just getting started. That sounds like a concern. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, no doubt. And actually, the letter spells out some of the concerns that really came from the origin of the rehaul of FEMA more than 20 years ago, which is, of course, this week, the anniversary of devastating Hurricane Katrina. And so some of these employees brought that up. But those 21 or so that have been put on leave, they actually signed their names onto that letter. And that's why that decision was taken. There were actually more than 180 others who also signed on or said they were feeling that they wanted to be a part of that and contribute to that sentiment, but not all of them did so by exactly their name. So the other idea here is that there could be others who could be put on leave, but who directly it was impacting the ones who signed it and were most vocal about this. But we've seen so much turnover at this agency that, remember, President Trump has said he might want to get rid of entirely. There's a review board that's looking at that process that may do that and then would shift the responsibility for these kinds of disasters to the states and not to the federal government. So that is still a live issue as well.
All right, Monica Alba in Washington. Monica, thank you.
Now it's time for a check on your morning news now weather with meteorologist Angie Lassman.
Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. We're waking up to some wet weather and, unfortunately, some flooding concerns across the middle of the country. Notice all of the flood watches that we see up, but more importantly, those flash flood warnings that are up for places like Little Rock this morning, stretching back into northeastern Oklahoma and into southern portions of Kansas right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of those popping up here as the rest of the morning goes on and this moisture starts to shift a little farther to the south. Anywhere from Kansas to Mississippi is where we'll be watching for the heaviest of those downpours, with some of this rain falling on areas that are already saturated from earlier morning rain. So we're going to watch the downpours stretching across the southeast into parts of the plains. This is going to be something that, again, prompts more of these flood alerts as the day goes on. And then, unfortunately, this front kind of just sticks around. It becomes stationary. We see it sitting along the Gulf Coast, and that means more of that heavy rain on tap, but moving essentially into parts of the deep south. Otherwise, it's the late August cool temperatures that get your attention. Not quite where we should be for this time of year, but still pleasant nonetheless. Upper 70s in New York City. We've got low 80s for Lexington, Oklahoma City. Some of these numbers running below normal, not just today, tomorrow, but even into this upcoming weekend. Temperatures are fairly mild, but still pleasant for most folks as they head out for that holiday weekend. Speaking of that, look at your travel impacts for tomorrow. A couple of spots I want you to be aware of: the southeast, the northeast, specifically New England, and then parts of the mountains and plains. We could still see some thunderstorms. So if you're heading out on the roads or to the airports, I think a couple of spots to watch: Houston to New Orleans, down through the Sunshine State. Boston will be another location to keep a close eye on your travel impacts for, and Salt Lake City and Denver as well.
Could be a lot worse.
It could be a lot worse. I know you just mentioned we're in the middle of hurricane season. Oftentimes we're talking about that for this holiday weekend. So thankful nonetheless.
We'll take it.
Thanks, Angie.
You got it.
We've got much more to come here on Morning News Now, including continuing coverage of that tragedy in Minneapolis. More on the investigation into the deadly mass shooting at a Catholic school.
Up first after the break, new guidelines for the next round of COVID vaccines. What you need to know next. Stay with us.
We're back with new information on the federal government's plans for the latest COVID vaccines. The FDA has approved updated COVID shots, but only for a smaller, high-risk group of people, including adults over 65 or those with underlying medical conditions. And all of this comes as the CDC faces fresh turmoil after its director was abruptly fired yesterday, as we were just discussing. Joining us now for more on this is NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Dr. Patel, good morning. Always great to have you with us. So let's start with the updated COVID shots. So these new shots, they're only approved for the smaller, high-risk group of people. So walk us through who is eligible.
Yeah, Savannah, so this is confusing, and it's a label change that happened at the Food and Drug Administration yesterday, where they basically indicated that unless you are 65 or older or an adult with high-risk conditions, that you should not get the shot. Basically, 65 and older can get it, or an adult with high-risk conditions. There are kind of a long list of what those high-risk conditions are, but the enforcement and how that gets done at pharmacies or doctors' offices is not clear. The reason I say it's confusing, just to add one more thing to it, that the current CDC guidance is that basically any adult over the age of 18 should get a COVID vaccine, and there's really a recommendation for no children to get vaccines unless they have high-risk conditions. We expect those guidelines to change, not just because of the recent CDC changes, but they're meeting as an advisory commission in September. So if that doesn't leave you confused, I don't know what does, but it could leave you with about a $140 cost out of pocket if your insurance company doesn't cover this. But as of today, it's covered. We expect there will be some companies that change their guidance pending whatever happens by the CDC in September.
And so what does that conversational process look like? Let's say you're not in one of these groups, but you still want to get the vaccine. You pay out of pocket, first of all, up to $140. But can you just ask your doctor? Will your doctor give it to you?
Yeah. So right now, for example, in our offices, my office, we don't have a updated COVID vaccine. We have some supply of the older vaccine, which we can offer to people. That is, as of today, still covered. But if we did get a change in coverage, what we're doing, we're preparing to ask people to sign waivers. We're going to talk to them about the risks and benefits. The waivers will say, if we can't get this covered by your insurance, you might have an out-of-pocket cost. And then what I have been telling people who go to pharmacies, including myself, Savannah, I get my own vaccines at a pharmacy. It's more convenient. It's down the street. I get my family to go. What we're telling people is that to have a conversation. And then I'm reminding people that even things such as being overweight actually qualifies as one of these high-risk conditions. So I just want to do a refresh. You can actually talk to your doctor and say, do I actually meet these criteria?
Right.
And just have that discussion, because you might be surprised that many Americans do.
For parents who are hearing this and are thinking about their kids, maybe they don't want to get them vaccinated, maybe they do. If you fall in that do group, what can you do here? And are you concerned about this for young kids?
I am. And so we know that the American Academy of Pediatrics has come out with a very strong stance. By the way, they did this last month when there were changes suggested around not covering children. And as we saw with the FDA yesterday, they indeed certainly removed from the label any recommendation for children to get the vaccine unless they have high-risk conditions. The AAP said clearly this is absolutely goes against the science, meaning that they still recommend for 6 months and older to actually get the COVID shot. And I think that this is exactly where all of us on the physician front line stand. What we are telling parents, we're doing the same thing. We do this with all vaccines, Savannah, kind of go over the risks and benefits. And what we're telling parents is that we're seeing spiking cases, kids are back to school. And that what I say is, do you want them to be out of school and potentially be at home sick? Do you want to make this a problem in the family? And if not, then let's talk about how to protect yourself if you don't get the vaccine. So there are choices, but there are going to be some hard ones for some parents who might have to pay out of pocket.
Before I let you go, Doctor, I do want to ask you about the shakeup at the CDC. The Trump administration fired the agency's director. This is just a few hours after she refused to resign. But what kind of impact does that end up having on the agency, the ability to respond to a crisis? How might people feel it, just at home?
It's huge. People don't understand what the implications of this. I want it to be clear. This is a historic director, the first Senate-confirmed CDC director because of the pandemic and the importance of what the CDC does. And then on top of that, she basically was forced or is being fired or whatever the status is, Monica, and you mentioned, because of her desire to follow the science. She's a PhD scientist, so that's not unusual. So this is an unprecedented move, and I think this has global implications for generations to come. And I don't say that lightly, Savannah.
Dr. Patel, I know you do not. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Good to see
you.
Well, tomorrow marks 20 years since Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast. It is still the most destructive storm in U.S. history. But now experts warn the risk of even stronger storms is higher than ever. Well, climate change has made our oceans much hotter, which allows hurricanes to become Category 5 storms overnight. NBC News meteorologist Chase Kane explains.
In just this small area of about 5 or 6 city blocks, there are right now about 19 or 20 deaths in just that small area.
That's me as a young reporter covering the most destructive hurricane in U.S. history. Katrina caused more than $200 billion in damage and killed nearly 1,400 people. And in the 2 decades since, our oceans have gotten even hotter as a result of burning oil and gas. This illustration shows how fast ocean temperatures are rising, nearly a full degree hotter since 2005, which is a big deal because heat is what fuels hurricanes.
And unfortunately, yes, there is more of that jet fuel that these systems, tropical cyclones, can tap into and lead to rapid intensification.
When a storm's winds increase 35 miles an hour in less than 24 hours, that's rapid intensification. And that's happening more often. But so is an even newer term, extreme rapid intensification.
But look at what Milton did, 92-mile-an-hour increase, and that is one of the hallmark signatures of what climate change is doing to hurricanes, Hallie.
A Climate Central analysis found that since Hurricane Katrina, extreme rapid intensification is happening nearly 50% more often.
And if that intensification occurs near land, it basically cuts off any lead time and leads to a community being, in many cases, unprepared.
And that's why investments in hurricane research are so important, helping forecasters at the National Hurricane Center keep pace with how an overheating planet makes storms more intense and wetter, too.
Every hurricane contains more moisture than it would have without climate change, and that means the rainfall associated is in every case stronger than it would have been. And so the flood damage from hurricanes is larger because of climate change.
Numerous studies show that link. Researchers found Hurricane Helene dumped 10% more rain because of climate change, 18% more rain from Hurricane Ian, and up to 36% more rain during Hurricane Harvey, likely flooding twice as many homes because of climate change. And looking back to Katrina, Climate Central found the water which fueled the storm was, even at the time, 5 times more likely to be that hot because of climate change. Fast forward to today, and the Gulf is even hotter.
Folks need to realize that the 21st century climate and the type of weather extremes that we're seeing in the 21st century climate are nothing like we've lived through before. People need to be ready for these extremes and think more often than not that if there's a chance for something bad happening, it's a much bigger chance than it was in the 20th century.
Important reporting there. Our thanks to Chase Kane for that report. We've got international news now. We're going to start in Gaza City, where Israeli forces have now leveled an entire neighborhood. Matt Bodner joins us with that and more world news in 60 seconds. Hey, Matt, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. Gaza civil defense officials say that more than 1,500 homes in the Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza City have been destroyed by the IDF since Israel began its new ground offensive earlier this month. The Israeli objective is to seize complete control of Gaza City. That is the last remaining area in Gaza they do not control. They're doing that to ensure that Hamas does not remain in power. Gaza City, by the way, is home to some 700,000 people. Moving along now to Argentina, President Javier Milei was hit with stones thrown by protesters while he was campaigning near Buenos Aires yesterday. Demonstrators gathered to call out a recent corruption scandal involving the far-right leader. Milei was rushed away by his security detail. He is campaigning for the nation's midterm parliamentary elections in October. We'll wrap up this hour right here in the UK. Scientists have discovered a new species of dinosaur. This one's weird. It had armor and giant spikes sticking out of the back of its head and neck and back. This dinosaur is believed to have lived about 165 million years ago, and the spikiness of the creature has experts puzzled. They now need to figure out its evolutionary history. Back to you.
Wow, that is pretty neat. Matt, thank you so much. Coming up, more on that horrific mass shooting that killed at least 2 children at a Minneapolis Catholic school. We will bring you the latest. Plus, we're going to hear from an expert about how to talk to kids about tragedies like these. Morning News Now. We'll be right back. We are back with more on our top story this morning. Flags are flying at half-staff across the country to honor the victims of the shooting at a Minneapolis Catholic school yesterday. The White House said President Trump ordered this at all government buildings until sunset on Sunday as a, quote, mark of respect for the victims of this senseless act of violence. The shooting happened at the Annunciation Catholic School, which just had its first day back on Monday. The community in mourning gathered last night for a vigil, and according to 2 officials, 2 children, ages 18 and 10, were killed, and 17 other victims were injured. Police say 14 of the injured were children. However, they are all expected to survive. We want to take a moment now to talk about the impact that tragedies like these can have, not just on the community directly affected by them, but on families and children everywhere who hear about them, especially right as the school year gets underway. A recent Pew Research study found that 19% of K-12 parents are extremely worried about the possibility of a shooting happening at their child's school. Another 13% saying they're very worried. A little earlier, we spoke to Vincent Francois, the father of one of the surviving students who's been left rattled by her experience.
Like once we got out of school, she said, I want to move back to France. I don't want to go back to school. All the kids don't want to go to the church. She just said that she thought she was going to die on that day. And so it's rough.
Well, joining us this morning is licensed marriage and family therapist Dr. George James to help us navigate these difficult conversations. Dr. James, good morning. You're exactly the type of person that we would like to have here to talk through something difficult like this morning, so I appreciate your time. Thankfully, most parents, won't find themselves in Mr. Francois's particular horrible situation. But after a tragedy like this, what are the very first steps parents should take when talking with their children, when emotions are running high, and even if your child didn't directly experience something like this firsthand, just seeing things on social media, hearing the conversations, seeing the headlines on the news, on shows like this one, that something happened to little kids when they were just at school?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. Unfortunately, these things are just horrific, and my heart goes out to that father and all the parents who are dealing with this or have ever had to deal with this. You know, one of the things that we can do first is to really acknowledge our own emotions and feelings, that we feel upset, overwhelmed, scared, as parents, and that if we feel this at a high level, that our children are also feeling that. And so we have to be patient with ourselves, patient with our children, and also get the help and support that we might need. What do we need to make it through the day or even the week? That's something we need to think about as we go through these things.
Dr. James, we know kids process these events very differently, right, depending on their age. How would you say that you should tailor these conversations so that they're age appropriate and can reassure a child that they are safe, even when sometimes that's a tough promise? What do you say?
Yeah, my general rule is that as children are younger, we share a little bit less information. As they get older, as they're teenage even, we share all the information because they already know and have access to it. We want to be honest. We also want to be able to not lecture our young folks. We want to pay attention to how much they can take in and take breaks. Sometimes with our young folks, we share the information and then back off and then come back again and listen to their curiosity because they will give us guidance.
I think it's really important on this graphic here, like by age, to really think about, like, sometimes you are going to have that open discussion about it. Is that right? Like, kids don't always want to be shielded from everything.
No, and honestly, kids know a lot more than we give them credit for, and especially the young folks who've had to deal with this. They saw it, they were there, and so we want to give them space and talk about details, even details that we are afraid of talking about or that feel uncomfortable, but they are actually more ready for it, and actually we give them the reason to say that what they went through when we talk about them in details.
For parents who find themselves in the unthinkable, unfair, horrible situation, like the father of one of the surviving children that we just heard from moments ago, what signs should those parents be watching out for that a child might be struggling with the trauma, with anxiety, with post-traumatic stress?
Yeah, we want to continue to pay attention to our young folks, and that sometimes it's small or slight changes. It might be changes in their behavior. It might be changes in their appetite, or they're eating more or less, or they sleep in more or less. Are they losing interest in things that they used to be interested in? Are they having trouble focusing or more irritable? These are things that sometimes will let us know. And as you see, do they have intrusive thoughts or feelings or even physical things like headaches or stomach aches? This often will say something might be going on with your child.
Dr. George James, talking to you is always like a big hug, and we need that this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, they are the brains behind the technology. New this morning, Time is out with this year's Time 100 Artificial Intelligence list. We will look at who is being honored as some of the most influential leaders in AI technology. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. It's time now to get you some financial headlines. We're going to start with YouTube TV and Fox striking a deal just in time for the start of football season. CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning to you. Yes, so YouTube TV and Fox, they're reaching a short-term extension. This to keep the Fox channels on the streaming service for the moment and, of course, ahead of a busy weekend of college football games. It is unclear how long this extension will last. Earlier this week, YouTube, which is owned by Alphabet, said if the companies were unable to reach a new distribution deal by Wednesday afternoon, Fox channels, including Fox News, sports and business, those would be dropped from YouTube TV. You know, Google is rolling out a new device protection plan called Pixel Care Plus, and it includes unlimited claims for accidental damage, extended warranty claims, plus free screen and battery repairs and priority support. Pixel Care Plus, it varies in price, and it really depends on the device that you have. For a Pixel 10, it costs $10 a month or $199 for 2 years. And the worldwide craze over those Labubu dolls is boosting the personal wealth of the CEO of the Chinese company behind the toys. So shares of Pop Mart, these are up more than 250% this year, pushing Wang Ming's estimated net worth to $27.5 billion, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Wang is now $20 billion richer than at the start of 2025, meaning his net worth has more than tripled. He's outpacing Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Michael Dell, and all but 7 names on the list, Savannah.
From Labubu's.
That's
From
amazing.
Labubu's.
Why didn't I think of those?
Right? I mean, come on, brain.
Thanks, Silvana.
All right, we're getting a first look this morning at Time Magazine's annual Time 100 Artificial Intelligence list.
It was created 3 years ago after ChatGPT first went mainstream. Time says the list was designed not only to feature the most influential people in AI, but to show the world that humans, not machines, will direct the future of artificial intelligence.
Despite what movies might tell you.
Yeah.
For more on this, let's bring in senior editor at Time, Aisha Jarvid. She's one of the project leaders on this list. Good to have you with us, Aisha. We'll get to the honorees in just a moment, but first, just walk us through how your team decides who makes the Time 100 AI and just what we should know about the process.
Yeah, sure. So it's a several-month process. We have a great team of reporters and editors who are kind of gathering for several months, discussing who should be on each year's list, and having conversations. Really, what we're trying to demonstrate with these lists is what are the big stories happening in AI and that have been happening over the past year. And, you know, this is a rapidly moving space. So there are so many new stories to tell each year. And that's what we really try to represent with each choice that we make for the list.
And I know there are actually really some new stories this year. I mean, the list isn't ranked in any way, so there's no, winner technically, but only 16 of the honorees on this list have been on it before, everybody else making it for the first time. Walk us through that, some of the most prominent forces and faces in AI right now, and some that we should know are kind of up and coming.
Yeah, sure. So this is such a fast-moving industry, and I think that is definitely kind of shown by the fact that we have so many new names each year. So, the stories are different. We're seeing a lot of movement within between kind of companies. There's a huge kind of talent war going on at the moment in the AI industry, and so we're seeing people kind of being offered huge amounts to move across from one big lab or company to another. But we're also seeing new sort of stories emerging. The issue, for example, of data being scraped and how we kind of protect certain kind of data, like whether it's journalism or other content. So, for example, Matthew Prince of Cloudflare was someone that we selected for the list to kind of help tell that story. And also how these models behave is evolving, and what guardrails we put in place is becoming an increasing issue. So that's why we have Stuart Russell, for example, and many others on the list who are doing work around kind of the protections and the guardrails. As well as those in the labs themselves, Joanne Zhang at OpenAI, for example.
This year's cover, which we just saw, AI generated, but created by a human artist who made a still and then an animated version. We've only got like 30 seconds here, but what's the message you hope to send about the growth of AI when it impacts our lives?
Well, this is a really fascinating and fun project that we collaborated with Rafiq Anadol on. He is also one of the honorees. He's a digital artist. And what he actually did was feed 5,000 Time covers into his AI model. That's 100 plus years of Time covers to kind of create and imagine various futures. And we do have some examples of some other covers part of the package of a future of AI, whether that's jobs or other ways that we're using AI in the future that we don't even know about yet.
All right.
But the cover image is more of a kind of, he calls it the AI dreaming of
It's a little scary the way it comes at you.
All right, Aisha Jarvid, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Coming up, continuing coverage on our top story, that horrific mass shooting at a Minneapolis school.
The tragedy bringing a tight-knit community together in both grief and in faith. It's a community I know well. When we come back, we'll take a closer look on Morning News Now. Finally, this hour, we want to return to Minneapolis, a city in mourning, a place I know well. Minneapolis is my hometown, and I know this deadly shooting is touching so many people in that community. In fact, my mother-in-law, when she moved to Minnesota in the mid-'70s, got her first teaching job at Annunciation School. She taught second grade there for a couple years and remembers it as a welcoming and warm place. And that's still the way people see Annunciation today. In this South Minneapolis neighborhood, Annunciation Church has deep roots, with the first Mass celebrated more than 100 years ago.
It's a very close-knit neighborhood.
Which is why the anguish felt here is echoing down every single block.
My heart goes out to all the Annunciation families, all of us that know all those families.
When Annunciation school year began Monday, the theme was a future filled with hope. Words inspired by Scripture, Jeremiah chapter 29, words then shattered by reality.
There's nothing about today that can fill us with hope.
And yet the school's values, like be kind and be brave, were on full display in their darkest hour.
My friend Victor, saved me, though, because he laid on top of me, but he got hit.
You're really brave, you know that?
Yeah.
Bravery from the kids and from the adults who protected those kids.
This is a nightmare, but we call our staff the Dream Team, and we will recover from this. We will rebuild from this.
Despite everything, their faith still guides them to see a future filled with hope. And the principal who you saw there a moment ago, Matt DeBoer, also said we have a responsibility to make sure no student, no teacher, no parent ever has to go through this again. He says we should commit those words to our vocabulary. Never again. This feels like one of those events that is once again sparking conversations about changes that need to be made to make sure we don't continue to see young children shot in schools or churches around the country.
Little kids, not only at school, but in a church service. And Joe, your personal connection to the place has so helped our reporting, so thank you so much.
It's a place that means a lot to me. All right, that's going to do it for this hour. Morning News Now.
Stay with us. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thank you for being with us this Thursday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer.
Right now on Morning News Now, tragedy at Mass. A community in shock this morning after a heartbreaking shooting during a Catholic school's morning Mass. An 8-year-old and a 10-year-old killed, with more kids remaining in critical condition.
It was like shots fired, and then we kind of got under the pews. They shot through the stained glass windows. It was really scary.
The harrowing accounts emerging as we learn the FBI is investigating this as an act of domestic terrorism and find out more about the personal connection between the alleged shooter and that Catholic church. We'll speak with one of the local faith leaders who arrived at the scene shortly after the attack. Also this morning, forced out, the Trump administration fires the director of the CDC after she refused to step aside. The power struggle coming after she accused Health Secretary RFK Jr. of weaponizing public health. We'll have the latest as other high-level officials turn in their resignation letters. Plus, hitting the road, Labor Day weekend is almost here with cheaper flights and gas than a year ago. However, you're planning to get to your destination, we have you covered. We'll get a travel expert's take on the best and worst times to leave and what to expect on your commute this year. And finally, there's no place like Dome. Pack your ruby slippers as the Wizard of Oz heads to the Sphere in Las Vegas for an epic spectacle that's taking viewers right inside the magical land to experience the iconic Hollywood classic like never before. Gotti said that it is just an incredible experience.
They had to actually add to the movie, add to the edges of it so that they could fill the space of the Sphere.
And you got a little view there that you get some kind of of that
it's
virtual,
3D-ish. Yeah,
exactly.
4D-ish.
We are going to begin, though, this morning with that breaking news and the latest in the investigation into the deadly shooting at a Catholic school in Minnesota. Police say they are learning more about the 23-year-old shooter who opened fire on the Annunciation Catholic School in South Minneapolis yesterday, killing 2 children and injuring 17 other victims. New details about the shooter and her connection to the church have begun to emerge as police say they are poring over disturbing videos that were posted online before the attack. And they say she died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
The victims, described by their principal as 2 angels, were just 8 and 10 years old. They were killed while sitting in church pews. 14 of the 17 injured are children. Officials now say they expect all of them will survive. Still, the school is in mourning today, so is the community. They're rattled by an unspeakable tragedy that struck on just the first week of school. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa is outside that school in Minneapolis with the latest. Maggie, good morning.
Hey there, good morning. While the exact motive here remains a mystery, the shooter's connection is coming into focus. The Star Tribune, the local paper, reporting the shooter is indeed a former student at the Annunciation Catholic School. They're citing a 2017 copy of the school's yearbook that they say they've obtained. NBC News also learning, meanwhile, that the shooter's mother, it seems, worked at this church, used to work at this church. All of these pieces of a tragic puzzle as people here struggle to understand the unthinkable.
A senseless attack on children in a Minnesota church this morning, leaving a community shattered. Hundreds gathering at multiple vigils in Minneapolis overnight to remember the 8-year-old and 10-year-old killed and the 17 students and parishioners wounded in Wednesday's shooting at the Church of Annunciation. Students praying during their first week back at school when bullets started flying.
They shot through the stained glass windows, I think, and it was really scary.
A fifth grader describes ducking for cover.
I just ran under the pew, and then I covered my head. My friend Victor, saved me, though, because he laid on top of me, but he got hit.
Youth Minister Ellie Mertens says her students were terrified.
Kids are wailing. What the hell is happening? It's just evil.
Little kids.
Yeah. It was horrific.
Investigators identifying the shooter as Robin Westman, saying the 23-year-old fired dozens of rounds from a rifle, shotgun, and pistol, all purchased legally before taking their own life.
We, as a community, have a responsibility to make sure that no child, no parent, no teacher ever has to experience what we've experienced today.
Investigators executing search warrants at 4 locations tied to the shooter. Court documents showing Westman's parents requested a name change from Robert to Robin, granted in 2020, saying Westman, quote, identifies as a female. Just before the attack, investigators say the shooter posted a series of disturbing videos showing numerous writings on weapons, including racial slurs, a call for President Donald Trump's death, anti-Semitic messages, and references to the Holocaust and the Catholic Church, according to an NBC News review. There were also hand-drawn blueprints of a church. Above it, in Russian Cyrillic alphabet, Annunciation from memory. A 2021 Facebook post by the church indicates Westman's mother used to work there. She hasn't responded to NBC News' request for comment. This morning, leaders outraged as yet another community wonders why.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying.
Local authorities still not naming the victims. This morning, they are getting help from the ATF and the FBI, who are investigating this as an act of domestic terrorism and a potential hate crime against Catholics. Back to you.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much.
Let's bring in Howard Dotson. He is an interfaith chaplain who met with parents and students at their unification point moments after this tragedy unfolded. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I mean, tell us, when you arrived at the school, what was it you saw and witnessed, and what was the message you were trying to impart to those who were just dealing with such tragedy in that moment?
This is the third school shooting I've responded to. Venice High School, LA, 2006. Sparks Middle School, 2013. And as a Catholic healthcare chaplain, once I knew it was a Catholic school, I knew I needed to respond. So they were matching by grades, parents being reunited with their children. I asked for a teacher to get some art supplies, because we use art therapy to help children cope after they've been exposed to trauma. I told the moms, many whom I hugged, both of the moms who lost their child. I told them God's hedge of protection is surrounding you. God is protecting your heart and mind. The great physician is going to be with you, and the great physician is with your classmates being treated at the hospitals.
We understand also one of your favorite interactions was with a music teacher. Could you tell us a little bit about what that was like and how music and art, as you mentioned, can help people cope with tragedies like this?
I told Archbishop Hebda last night about the music teacher who had the Holy Spirit nudge her to have the kids sing, "Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary." And I encourage people to play that song as we pray for the recovery. But as a police chaplain for 15 years, I have seen too many mothers' tears. After Uvalde, the students walked out and we gathered at the US Bank Stadium here in Minneapolis. In the reflection, I reminded them of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, healing a temple guard's ear. For 2,000 years, Jesus has been saying, no more of this. So we chanted, no more of this, multiple times. Our kids deserve to be safe in their schools. We're failing them. And not to go political, but our leaders in DC and every capital need to figure out what needs to happen so this never happens again.
And you say that as someone who's responded to a shooting not once, not twice, but 3 times right now. And this one's in a church where kids are sitting in the pews. And obviously people might start to question their faith when something like this happens. So when people are experiencing that, questioning their faith, what's the message that you can try to relay to them?
The suffering servant. For Catholics, Jesus is on the cross as a suffering servant. And we go through Calvaries, but Jesus is with us in those dark valleys. And there will always be an Easter sunrise, no matter how many Calvaries come.
What a great message. Can you tell us also just what you see happen when you lend your support after a trauma like this? How does it make an impact and hopefully a lasting one on victims and the families of victims?
In our culture, we're death avoidant, and we think that grief is going to be resolved in a matter of weeks. As a chaplain, I see a lot of people that are isolated in their grief, and people avoid talking about their loved one because they think it's going to make them sad. When in reality, remembering them and walking that journey with them, that's where Jesus is. Where Jesus was skin on this bereavement journey. So in my homilies, I often encourage people to, don't avoid talking about the loved one. Share the memories. And the Maroon 5 song, Memories, is one I often play at memorial services.
Chaplain Howard Dodson, we appreciate your time this morning, and more than anything, we thank you for what you did yesterday to just try and provide a little comfort to those in their time of need. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a message needed this morning. And let's turn now to Washington and the Trump administration's stunning clash with the nation's top public health agency. The White House says CDC Director Susan Menares has been fired after refusing to resign from her job. And it's a role she had been in for less than a month, and now other top CDC officials have stepped down. NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander joins us with more on this big shakeup. Hey, Peter, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. Susan Menares' lawyers insist for now she is not going anywhere, delivering a sharp rebuke of the leadership at HHS, the Health and Human Services Department, and its Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The administration's critics here, they say it's evidence that President Trump is prioritizing loyalty over expertise in science. But the White House simply says Menares was not on board with the president's Make America Healthy Again agenda. This morning, a stunning standoff at America's leading public health agency. The head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Susan Menares, refusing to leave as the White House tries to fire her amid an overnight wave of high-profile departures at the agency. It comes less than a month after Menares, a Trump appointee, was confirmed for the job.
I will ensure all recommendations are backed by publicly available gold standard science.
The Department of Health and Human Services announced Menares was no longer CDC director yesterday. But Menares' lawyers initially said she was not told she was fired and would not resign, adding she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she has been targeted. Overnight, a White House spokesman saying because Menares refused to resign, the White House has terminated her from her position. Late Wednesday, 4 other high-ranking CDC leaders, including some of the agency's top infectious disease experts, did resign their posts amid clashes over vaccine policy under HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a vocal vaccine skeptic.
Doctors are being paid to vaccinate, not to evaluate. They're pressured to follow the money, not the science.
In an email obtained by NBC News, one of the officials that resigned emphasizes that the rise of misinformation about vaccines during the current Trump administration has cost lives. Kennedy yesterday announced changes to how Americans get COVID vaccines. The FDA approving a new round of shots for the fall, but for a limited group, adults 65 and older, along with high-risk patients, meaning this fall and winter, those new shots may be more difficult to obtain, including for children, and may not be covered by insurance for many Americans. One of the officials who resigned at the CDC highlighting Kennedy's stance on the COVID vaccine, writing, "The intentional eroding of trust in low-risk vaccines will bring us to a pre-vaccine era where only the strong will survive, and many, if not all, will suffer." This morning, Susan, Menares' lawyers are still disputing the White House's effort to remove her, saying as a presidential appointee who is confirmed by the Senate, only the president himself can fire her. Menares' ouster, though, is also raising concerns among some leading lawmakers. The top Republican on the Health Committee saying the high-profile departures will require congressional oversight. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Peter, thank you. Well, over in the Middle East, Gaza's health ministry says 4 more people have died due to famine and malnutrition in the past 24 hours, including 2 children.
That brings the total number of deaths related to malnutrition in the Palestinian enclave to 317. 121 of them are children. Israel has been restricting food aid into Gaza for months, leading the IPC to declare a man-made famine in Gaza City. It's a declaration that was backed by all members of the UN Security Council yesterday, except the United States. Speaking at the meeting yesterday, the British ambassador urged Israel to lift its restrictions and let in more aid.
It is entirely man-made, and, as my Foreign Secretary has said, it is a moral outrage. I have 2 clear messages for Israel. Immediately lift restrictions and allow food, medical supplies and fuel to reach those in desperate need in line with international humanitarian law. And allow the UN and international NGOs to carry out their life-saving work without obstruction.
NBC News International correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now from Jerusalem. Molly, good morning. So let's start on the famine. Tell us more about the message from the 14 members of the Security Council who backed this declaration and why the U.S. wasn't part of that.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Look, once again, the United States is isolated in its support of Israel and in its defense of Israel in the UN Security Council. 14 members all signed this joint letter, and you just heard the UK ambassador to the UN very clearly lay out. They all agree with the IPC's assessment that this is a man-made famine. They are demanding a ceasefire. They are demanding the release of all hostages, and they are demanding the entry of humanitarian aid. They also warned that the use of starvation as a weapon of war is banned under international humanitarian law, and the United States did not sign on.
Molly, we're also continuing to monitor the fallout of those strikes on Nasser Hospital in Gaza on Monday, which killed rescue workers and journalists. Israel facing a huge backlash because of that. Are we learning anything new?
Yeah, guys, one of the things that we have been digging into in the last several days, especially since Tuesday, since the Israeli military released their preliminary report, is what did the Israeli military know exactly? Because we know, and we have established, and we've been talking about all week, that this area in Nasser Hospital was well known as a hub for journalists. Well, we got a statement from Reuters last night. Of course, Hossam al-Masri, who is the Reuters cameraman operating a live feed of Gaza from the roof of Nasser Hospital at the time of the first strike, has now told NBC News that Israel was fully aware that Reuters operated and was operating at Nasser Hospital. You guys, daily for the last several weeks, Reuters said that Hossam al-Masri has been there delivering live feeds for their international clients like NBC News. You guys, we also had the chance to speak with the director of nursing, Dr. Mohammed Sakr, who gave us a little bit more context about, I would say, the logistics with the Israeli military there at Nasser Hospital. Take a listen.
Everyone can see this place, even the Israeli army, by their own drones or by their own cameras. They can see Hossam and other journalists working from the 4th floor. If they had any trouble with Hossam or other journalists working from the 4th floor, they could have called us. We simply could have just removed the camera.
What Dr. Mohammed Sakr is saying is that there were other ways to remove the threat of a camera if that is what the Israeli military was really doing, which is what they claim they do. He also, as we have established, was just adding to kind of the assumption that everyone knew journalists were working there, international journalists were working there. It was obvious to the naked eye. It was not a secret place, he said. You guys, we also have new reporting just in the last half hour that I want to share. We have talked about this double tap, strikes on Monday morning. The first strike and then minutes later, a second strike. We have now seen video, NBC News has obtained video of that second attack, and we have now slowed it down. We've worked with our social news gathering team in London to verify this video, and it shows 2 projectiles heading towards that 4th floor staircase on Nasser Hospital. So we have gone back to the Israeli military to say, is it possible that at least three munitions were used in that double tap attack? And we will certainly keep you posted with what we learn.
All right, Molly, thank you for that new information there. We also know President Trump chaired a meeting on Gaza yesterday, and it included post-war plans. Who attended it, and did anything come out of it?
This was built up as kind of a major meeting. We heard Steve Witkoff, of course, the president's special envoy earlier this week, saying that President Trump would chair a huge meeting on Gaza. We have not gotten a readout of that meeting. We do know that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, of course, former Middle East envoy, as well as former British Prime Minister Tony Blair were present. We do know that they talked about aid getting into Gaza, about the hostages and the release of hostages, and then specifically about the post-war plan. We do not have any details, though, about what exactly that post-war plan looks like, guys.
All right, Molly, thank you so much.
Going to check now on your morning news now, weather.
Angie Lastman is here in the studio with your forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning to you. Boy, we've got a busy morning happening across the midsection of the country, specifically parts of the plains. You've got Mississippi, essentially, to Kansas, that has this long line of showers and thunderstorms. There's plenty of lightning associated with this, but more importantly, we've got some really heavy rain falling. Notice the flash flood warnings that are in effect. These have been ongoing. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of these as the morning goes on. Little Rock, right in the bullseye of that. And this is kind of that training that we see happening where one shower and thunderstorm kind of develops right behind an area that was already just dealing with some heavy rain. So we're going to see more of the flooding. We've got a flood watch in effect in that area, and that's going to last through the day today. And you can see why. Most of this moisture will slide a little farther to the south, and we're really going to watch the lower Mississippi Valley to see the most impactful rainfall. But again, this is going to be fairly widespread. We've got Kansas to Mississippi that's going to see some of that rain, and with hourly rainfall rates 1 inch to 2 inches per hour, it's not going to be hard for us to see some of this additional flooding concern as the day goes on. The front sticks around, becomes stationary, and that means that we're just kind of unsettled across the deep south, still dealing with that heavy rain as we get into tomorrow. Waking up to cool temperatures today, and even this afternoon across the east, our temperatures are going to be on the low end, at least for this time of year. Late August, usually get a little more than 71 degrees in Cleveland. Not the case today. It's low 80s for Lexington. Mild highs as well for Memphis with a high of just 76 degrees. We head into tomorrow, more of the same as we finish out our work week and look ahead to the holiday weekend. A couple of trouble spots if you're traveling across parts of New England, I-95, places like Boston could see some trouble when it comes to air travel. The Southeast also going to stay unsettled here for really the long haul over the next couple of days. When you look at the Northeast, gorgeous. Honestly, I mean, temperatures are a little on the low side as we get through the weekend, but temperatures and sky conditions pretty good, even if you are heading to the beach. The Midwest looks good too. Parts of the Great Lakes are going to see plenty of sunshine, highs into the upper 70s. We'll see a couple of scattered showers over the plains. And then unfortunately for our friends in the south, that's where the rounds of showers and thunderstorms will be with us all weekend. The plus side is that temperatures will be on the lower end. So if you're looking for a little cool air, guys, maybe that's where you go. But still, back to Monday on Dallas, you're into the upper 80s, and it will be sunny. So there you go.
Angie, always the optimist.
Yes, I try. Listen, when you're a meteorologist, you have to.
So true. Thank you.
You got it.
All right, well, this weekend, many Americans are going to look to take advantage of those warmer temperatures while they can. Today's the first day of that Labor Day travel period. It kind of marks the unofficial end of summer, right? Well, once again, AAA is predicting another holiday of record numbers.
At airports alone, the TSA says it's expecting to screen more than 17 million passengers. It's pretty easy to see why. Flights, hotels, and rental cars are all cheaper than they were on Labor Day last year. So before the seasons change, forcing us to trade our bathing suits for sweaters, we've got some expert advice to help make your weekend travel as smooth as possible.
Yeah, it's spokesperson for Going.com, Katie Nastro. She joins us now with details on what to expect if you are traveling this weekend. Katie, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you with us. So, just how much cheaper are we talking about, and for which destinations?
Yeah, affordability is the name of the game for Labor Day weekend this year. If you haven't traveled earlier in the summer, this is actually a time period to get away. We're seeing 7% cheaper average airfare prices compared to the middle of summer, according to Going data for domestic travel. In general, 6% cheaper than last Labor Day weekend. We're seeing hotel rates down 11%. That's deep savings, as well as car rental prices down 3%. And then gas has been at some record lows in the last few years. And that's looking to continue throughout the weekend, which is good news for anybody hitting the road.
Yeah, no kidding. For folks who are trying to squeeze in that last sort of trip of the summer, looks like airports will be maybe a little bit busy. What should you know before you go to the airport?
Yeah, we're definitely looking at select cities, Los Angeles, New York, Boston. These are going to be some of the hotter spots. So you want to make sure you're giving yourself a little bit more time. Boston and Seattle actually are the two cities, according to AAA, that are going to see the busiest roadways. So if you are traveling from either of those major metro areas, you want to give yourself more time than usual. And Friday is going to be the busiest day, not just on the roadways, typically in the skies, as well as rental car pickups. This is the day that AAA targets as the busiest across the weekend. If you haven't booked anything yet, according to Going data, try to target Saturday to Tuesday instead of taking that Friday off. Very last minute, I know, but if you are planning a last minute trip, that's for better savings as well as fewer people that you're going to encounter.
And what should you think about if you are driving somewhere?
If you are driving somewhere, try to leave this evening past 7 p.m. or try to leave super early Friday morning. That midday, starting around 11 a.m., is going to be the busiest for most major metros if you're leaving from a city.
There you
don't want to spend your Friday sitting in traffic.
You don't. You want to get a jump start to the weekend. So if you can, Joe, you're right. You want to get ahead of it. So try to leave super early on Friday morning if you are planning on traveling on the busiest day of this week.
There you go. Or just go Saturday. Katie Nastro, thank you so much for joining us. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, Bricktacular. We're taking a closer look at Lego's record sales and why it's not just kids who are driving the trend.
But first, though, somber anniversary. Tomorrow marks 20 years since Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans. We'll show you what one of the hardest hit neighborhoods looks like today when we come back.
Welcome back. It has been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina decimated New Orleans. The lower Ninth Ward was one of the hardest hit communities, and it still bears some of the deepest scars today. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson returned to the neighborhood with one of the men in charge of the recovery efforts, Commander of Joint Task Force Katrina, retired U.S. Army General Russell Honore.
20 years after Hurricane Katrina submerged 80% of New Orleans, this is what the hardest hit lower Ninth Ward looks like today.
Doorstep still there, but no house.
Yeah, symbolic. It gives a marker that there's somebody in this, the chain of this property is going to come back.
That's what you see when you see that. Somebody's coming back.
Somebody's coming back.
65% of the population hasn't returned to the lower Ninth, and less than 40% of homes that once stood have been rebuilt.
I see the for rent sign.
Yeah.
But I also can't help but notice all of this over here right across the street.
Right. If there was a house then, that probably wouldn't be there.
Illegal dumping, just one of the problems now plaguing the once vibrant black neighborhood.
The rules don't get enforced here. We've been standing out there for how long? Did you see a police car come by anytime?
No, I
Probably
haven't.
not.
An area retired Army General Russell Honore knows well. He commanded the relief effort here all those years ago.
When you got the call, you're going to lead this mission.
I didn't get the call.
Huh.
I pre-deployed to Mississippi without orders.
So you went on your own?
Yeah. I talked to my boss. He informed the Pentagon, and then they called the White House, and within minutes later, the White House said, get that general to New Orleans.
Arriving by chopper 2 days after the storm made landfall in Louisiana.
To look down at all these 16,000 or so people looking at this helicopter, and the look in their eyes of desperation. And I saw a lady with a baby in a shopping cart in water, and the water was up to the baby's chest.
Soon after, evacuations began by bus as the city continued to spiral.
Looting, indiscriminate, basics and luxuries, anything not nailed down.
And Honore says the narrative among news networks and politicians began to shift.
And they're going in the big box stores and they're taking the food and water out of the big box store.
Yeah.
And we don't like that. While they sit on their 70 degrees air conditioned in New York and D.C., these people are trying to survive, and they've been standing out there for 5 days. So I had to get that message straight.
Doing just that in this dramatic moment.
Put those damn weapons down. I'm going to tell you again. Told the troops put their weapons down. We don't do that.
That resonated with people.
I think so.
Why?
Because we were there to save people. We were not doing a combat operation in Iraq or Baghdad.
There were accusations of racism, that this would not have happened the way it did had this not been a predominantly black city, a predominantly black neighborhood. Do you believe race played a role in the recovery and the government response?
I can see how people draw some of that conclusion. I think the enormous amount of poverty combined with the fact that New Orleans was a majority African-American city. But when the levees broke, it broke for everybody.
The levees have since been rebuilt and fortified, though officials say federal budget cuts have halted inspections for this year and next. This month, a mural unveiled honoring the community where the levee in the lower ninth broke. A reminder, Honore says, that strength in a disaster often lies with the people.
The people we put in body bags, majority of them were elderly, disabled, poor, and they were home alone. That hurts my heart.
Yeah.
That we didn't only have a failure of the system to get them out, we had a failure of friends, relatives, and neighbors.
And as disasters grow worse and more frequent due to climate change,
you need to be your own first responder. We cannot no longer look at the TV and say, oh, look, the hurricane's coming. But I'm going to stay, because I think I can survive a Category 3. Or you're living out in California, see the fire coming. Well, you know, we've been here for 50 years. That fire never made it up the hill. We got to change that perspective.
change, something that 20 years after the storm, parts of New Orleans still seek.
We ended up with more hotel rooms after Katrina than we had before, and more restaurants. And we got a better flood protection system.
And more vacant lots in the Ninth Ward, the lower Ninth.
Mm-hmm.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News, New Orleans.
Well, developing news now out of Ukraine. Russia has launched a missile and drone attack on Kyiv.
NBC's Matt Bodner joins us with that and more world news in 60 seconds. Matt, good morning.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. Russia launched a major strike on Kyiv overnight, actually its largest combined attack on the city in weeks. The strike involved almost 600 drones and decoys and 31 ballistic and cruise missiles. That actually makes it one of the biggest strikes of the war. At least 14 people were killed and dozens more injured. That's according to the latest numbers. The strike did target the city center. Moving along now to China, which will host a large military parade next week in Beijing. This is actually China's Victory Day parade, and it's marking 80 years since Japan's surrender in World War II. To honor the occasion, North Korea's Kim Jong-un is now set to attend. He'll be joined by Russian President Vladimir Putin. U.S. President Donald Trump is not expected to attend, though he has said he wants to meet with Kim as well as Chinese President Xi. Now on to Spain and the La Tomatina Festival. This is a giant party, basically, held in a town near Valencia. The whole thing centers around a giant food fight using tomatoes that were deemed unfit for consumption. This year did see some of the festival goers unveil Palestinian flags to show support for Gaza. Back to you guys.
All right, quite the party.
Yeah, looks fun. I would do it. Thanks, Matt.
I'll go.
Coming up, unexpected benefits.
Some scientists are saying a pretty common vaccine can also help lower your risk of cardiovascular disease like heart attack and stroke. We're going to tell you about the new research when we come back. Back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with the Trump administration's latest cuts to the federal workforce.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona joins us with the latest. Hey, Mel, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. We kick things off in Washington, where FEMA employees have been placed on leave after their public criticism of the Trump administration. At least 21 FEMA employees were put on administrative leave after they signed an open letter sounding the alarm over the administration's disaster preparedness and response capabilities. That letter was signed by nearly 200 of the agency's employees, and about 36 of them used their names, according to NBC News. 2 of the employees were working in Texas on the ongoing response to July's devastating floods when they learned that they were being placed on leave. Next, we head down to Florida, home to the controversial immigration facility in the Everglades known as Alligator Alcatraz. In the coming days, though, the facility will soon have no detainees in it, according to an email from a state official obtained by ABC News. President Trump and top Homeland Security officials have visited the facility in the past, which is expected to cost about $400 million. And finally, a grand jury has declined to indict a man who threw a sandwich at a federal officer here in D.C. The man, a Justice Department employee, was seen on camera throwing a hoagie at one of the federal officers whom Trump deployed to help clean up crime in Washington. The decision to not indict is just the latest sign of resistance to Trump's federal takeover of the nation's capital, and it also debunks the age-old saying you could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. That's what's looking at what's making news in politics this morning, guys.
See what you did there. All right, Mel, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, this morning in medicine, new research shows the unintended benefits you might get from a common vaccine.
A new analysis shows that getting vaccinated against the viral disease shingles could actually lower your risk for what are called major cardiovascular events, things like heart attacks and strokes.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is here with us from Ron This. Dr. Azar, great to have you with us. So what's the science here? Like how a vaccine that's really for something else can actually help you out in these other major ways?
Well, you know, we actually reported a few months ago that the shingles vaccine lowered the risk of dementia. And the idea here is kind of similar. And we know that after an infection, we know this with flu, and actually it's true with shingles as well, there's a higher risk of actually having heart attack and stroke after having shingles. The virus actually can replicate in your arteries and can set up this robust inflammation that can lead to thrombosis and blood clots. And so the idea here is, well, if you prevent infection, then potentially down the line, you're actually preventing these events from happening. And what they found that this was in fact true in people over the age of 50. The reduction was about 16%, and in people over the age of 18, there was an 18% reduced risk for having heart attack and stroke if you had received a shingles vaccine.
So I knew someone who recently had shingles, and it sounded absolutely miserable.
It is.
And it sort of begged the question, like, who is able to get vaccinated right now?
Yeah.
And is there an argument that we should expand that at all?
Yeah, so right now the recommendation is 50 and older. You are eligible to get the vaccine. It's a 2-shot series, which means you get 2 shots, 2 to 6 months apart. It's also indicated for people who are 19 and older who have underlying chronic conditions that could place them at higher risk for developing shingles. And remember, shingles is reactivation of the virus that causes chickenpox, which many of us either had as kids or were exposed to. In terms of broader recommendations, no, I don't think we're quite there yet, because the risk of developing shingles increases as we get older, when our immune system sort of stops that surveillance against, you know, keeping it intact, or I should say the virus lives in our spinal cord and reactivates as we get older. So we don't see shingles in younger people that often. But I should also note that recently the American College of Cardiology made very formal recommendations that all heart disease patients should get vaccinated against everything they can. And that also includes the shingles vaccine.
What happens if you're younger than 50 and you want it?
Well, you would pay out of pocket if you don't have a condition that would put you at higher risk for developing shingles. It doesn't need to be a lot of things, but it's usually someone who's moderately immunocompromised, either a cancer patient or someone with rheumatic disease, let's say, who's on medication that can suppress their immune system.
So with cardiovascular disease, for people, if they don't know, it's actually the leading cause of mortality around the world. Does information like this lead to other potential treatments for that?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's a really good question. I think the main sort of nugget of this story is the fact that we know that infections can increase the risk of these things happening. I don't know that it gives us any other novel look into mechanistically what's happening in heart disease. I think this is truly the insult from the infectious trigger that is down the line causing inflammation in blood vessels. Again, as I said, with flu, which is another plug, everyone out there, get your flu shot. There's a significant increase of cardiovascular events after flu, as well as after shingles.
All right, Dr. Azar, thanks as always.
Welcome back. Like baseball, apple pie, and skin knees, Lego is a part of the tapestry of the American childhood. The famous bricks have been around for nearly 100 years. They've been named Toy of the Century twice, and now they are more actually popular than ever, with sales up nearly 13% since the beginning of the year. And while you might think it's for kids, surprisingly, teens, young adults, and nostalgia are driving the trend.
For nearly a century, the simple snap and click of Lego pieces and bricks have brought childhood imaginations to life.
There's always something for everybody of every interest.
Lego are timeless, and now the famous building blocks are more popular than ever.
Every human, everyone can build Lego, old, young, over 18, under 18.
In the last 6 months, Lego revenue grew 12%, consumer sales increased 13%, and the company expanded the product, launching 314 new toy sets.
So those teens plus into the adult sector where they're seeing the most growth, they really have a pulse on the trends. That's a really great thing for their company.
The broad appeal? Lego designs grow with the user. There are themes to match each and every fancy.
I love Harry Potter.
From basic blocks that help toddlers develop motor skills to new thematic sets like botanicals timed and tied to Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, to nostalgic builds with thousands of pieces costing thousands of dollars, reminding adults of halcyon days, something I witnessed firsthand in 2021 at the Cincy Brick Show.
What do you say to the folks who go, well, wait, isn't that for kids?
We get that a lot. And I said, you know, I'm just a big kid.
Lego remains part of the zeitgeist.
I'm Batman.
The company has doubled down on expansion amid President Trump's tariff war. Lego is investing more than $1.5 billion in a factory and a regional distribution center in Virginia. But experts say Lego are more than just play. Psychologically, they take us back to a simpler, quieter time.
You're really getting that kind of calming of your mind, you know, it's clearing your mind.
And more parents are using them to keep kids and teens off screens.
I think that it really does spark creativity in a lot of kids, and it keeps them thinking and growing in terms of art and science and math.
Though there are some side effects.
If by any chance you have children and you're a parent and you've ever stepped on a Lego, you want to eliminate everything in life.
Foot pain aside, Lego is all in on connecting with the consumer. It has a crowdfunding program where people can submit designs for the next Lego set to be made. That gives consumers a voice, which allows people to really connect to the brand.
I feel like that pain of stepping on one is like in my body. You know what it is. Well, coming up, we are off to see the Sphere.
Yeah, next we're taking a look at the Las Vegas attraction, bringing the Wizard of Oz to life in a brand new way, nearly 90 years after the film's debut. We'll be right back. Finally, this hour, we are following the yellow brick road all the way to, of all places, Sin City.
A reimagining of the classic film, The Wizard of Oz, is now coming to the Sphere in Las Vegas and giving fans a way to experience its magical world like never before. NBC News Now anchor Gotti Schwartz, he was there, as you can see, him grabbing at those things flying around him. He's got more on how this all came to be. Gotti, you texted me that this blew your mind. Good morning.
Oh my gosh, this was wild. They call The Wizard of Oz, first of all, the most watched movie of all time before this, but it has never been seen like this. From the hyper-realistic backdrops to special effects that you can feel, the entire film has been remastered to immerse you in the wonderful world of Oz, and I know you want to see a sneak peek, so here you go. Dorothy and the gang are off to see the wizard, but this time, not in the Emerald City. Because the Wizard of Oz has crash-landed in Las Vegas, taken over the Sphere. And if you thought Dorothy's fever dream couldn't get any wilder, think again. We were among the first to see this immersive adaptation, which premieres today, complete with a monstrous tornado that will blow you away before dropping you into the colorful world of Munchkinland.
Oh my gosh.
That's just one of the many ways Oscar-nominated producer Jane Rosenthal and her team have reimagined the magic of Oz.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
The Sphere adds 4D effects like flying apples. And while you'll still hear Judy Garland's original vocals, an entirely re-recorded instrumental score transports you somewhere wonderfully new alongside Dorothy and her little dog, too.
Who hasn't wanted to walk down that yellow brick road? Who hasn't wanted to say we're off to see the wizard?
I gotta say, watching it, it's not a movie.
It's an experience.
It's something different than what any of us have ever seen before.
This is the original frame of the film.
Ben Grossman is just one of the many technical wizards who work to breathe new life into the nearly 90-year-old film. Using artificial intelligence, Grossman and his team expanded the original picture to fit the Sphere's massive 160,000-square-foot display and enhanced the visuals to a crystal-clear 16K resolution.
We needed to blow this up, and look how blurry she is.
Oh, wow.
Then we needed to do this.
Holy.
This is what you're seeing right now.
And it's breathtaking. I mean, this is truly breathtaking.
Grossman says the process was a painstaking act of forensic filmmaking.
These things must be done delicately.
His team analyzed original production notes and scripts to learn as much as they could about how the movie was made, then used that data to mimic filming techniques and even generate actors' performances with the help of Google's AI tech.
This, for us, really represents a really important stake in the ground of what AI can achieve.
Put 'em up, put 'em up! Still, some film purists have already taken jabs at the project, slamming its use of AI.
What do you think of all the criticism?
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, as they say.
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking.
Hopefully, if they have a brain, they'll come and see it and decide for themselves.
And if watching The Wizard wasn't enough, after the show, the Sphere is upping the ante, giving audiences a chance to meet him, too. Head of Sphere Studios, Carolyn Blackwood, says it's all about giving the story life beyond the screen.
Did you guys spare any expense here?
We aim to please.
Because you guys could have just been selling popcorn out here and people would have been fine.
Then it wouldn't be Sphere.
There's no place like home.
And now in its new home, The Wizard of Oz is looking to dazzle a new generation of fans.
We've just hit the tip of what we can do here. This is a new way of telling stories.
Look at that, that's crazy.
Okay, so in that last shot, I tried to give a little Easter egg. I didn't want to give it all away, but you might have seen a very quick shot of some flying monkeys. Some of the flying monkeys are real, like life-size drones swooping in on the audience from above, almost as terrifying as we remember as kids. That, with all the other craziness, comes with those ticket prices starting at about $100. But I gotta say, the tornado sequence alone, it is the most intense action sequence I have ever seen in any movie in my entire life. So sorry, Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible, and like Top Gun. Judy Garland for the win. She's got you beat. It's incredible.
You going, ah! It's like, needs to be like my new screensaver.
It's all about the experience now, too. That is like the future of cinema. So they're way ahead of the curve there. All right.
Very cool.
Thanks, Gotti.
Thank you.
It's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.